Sometime close to the end of the three-body problem, at the grave of her daughter, Ye Wenjie meets up with an astronomy turned sociology professor named Luo Ji. She suggests that he takes up the study of cosmic sociology, the study of the super society made up of all civilizations in the universe. Meanwhile, the Trisolarians speak to Mike Evans of the ETO about the nature of humanity to deceive, a concept that they do not comprehend since they communicate with their thoughts directly. They become afraid of humanity and abandon them, leading Evans to his doom aboard Judgment Day. Next, we enter Crisis Era, Year 3, and we're introduced to someone's named the Second Wallbreaker and the ETO. The Sophons reappear to the Second Wallbreaker and let them know that they have a mission. Afterwards, the Wallbreaker meets up with the remnants of the ETO in the virtual world of Three Body. We're also introduced to three old men adjusting to the world both of retirement and of the new Crisis Era. Afraid for the continuation of the family line, Zhang Yuanchou is tricked by Dasher's son Xiaoming out of $65,000 when he promises to guarantee that his family is secured a spot on the ship that will leave Earth in about 120 years. Zhang realizes that he's been scammed after the UN passes a resolution declaring escapism a crime against humanity. We're also introduced to Zhang Beihai, a naval political commissar who ultimately joins the newly formed Chinese Space Force. He warns the organization about the dangers of defeatism within the ranks. He worries that the current military is too reliant on technology, and because of the Sophon lock leading to humanity's inability to progress scientifically, the soldiers in the upcoming Doomsday battle in 400 years versus the Trisolarians will feel that the war is unwinnable. Finally, Luo Ji ultimately does take on the study of cosmic sociology, for which he tells the woman he's been sleeping with that he could have been famous for. Despite not remembering her name, the relationship comes to an abrupt end when she is hit and killed by a car in an accident right in front of him. He's taken to a room far underground where he believes he's under arrest and being questioned by our old friend Da Shi. It becomes clear that Luo isn't under arrest, but rather under protection, and he is being transported under heavy guard on the way to the airport where he boards a long-distance charter flight. During the flight, he recollects a time where his previous girlfriend asked him to write her a novel. Luo works on this novel and in the process ultimately fantasizes about the character he has created and falls in love with her, bringing the relationship with his real-world girlfriend, who also had an imaginary lover, to an end. Luo and Shi land in New York and go to the UN headquarters, where the Wallfacer project is announced at the General Assembly. This is a program that's designed to combat the Trisolarians by exploiting the fact they are unable to understand or practice deception and cannot read human thoughts. The project charges 4 people with developing plans entirely in the confines of their mind. The Wallfacers are given virtually unlimited resources and power as part of the project, and Luo Ji is named as the 4th Wallfacer. We start with Zhang Beihai continuing his work within the Space Force to ensure that the military is ready and believes in victory against the incoming Trisolarian invasion. When planning the future of the fleet, Zhang is the only one that volunteers for the high-tech area of research that includes life support and fusion drives that go to 5% of the speed of light. We're also introduced to the Wallfacers and the start of their plans. We meet with Ray Diaz, who researches how to build a bigger bomb and in the process develops a fear of the sun. Bill Hines and his wife think about ways to build on their neurological research to both better humanity and increase cognitive abilities as a way around the Sophon lock. Frederick Taylor starts to develop a plan for a swarm of small fighters equipped with large bombs. To help develop his plan, he seeks information about World War II kamikaze pilots and even meets with the leader of Al-Qaeda. Luo Ji exits the UN building after being named a Wallfacer and is a victim of an assassination attempt by the ETO. Thanks to his bulletproof vest and Dasher's quick reaction, he is relatively unharmed. After trying to renounce his position of Wallfacer, he realizes due to the nature of the program, no matter what he says, no one can really trust that he's left the program, so he eventually embraces the ability to do whatever he wants. He requests an idyllic manor in the mountains and lives a life of luxury. He also requests that Dasher find his dream girlfriend in real life, which Dasher does with the use of face recognition technology, and it is an art graduate named Zhuang Yan. Luo tells her that his plan is that she is to be happy, which starts with a trip to the Louvre, where they explore famous paintings together, including the Mona Lisa. The remnants of the ETO meet in the three-body world and assign 3 Wallbreakers to determine and expose the secret Wallfacer plans. Luo Ji is not assigned a Wallbreaker, saying he is his own Wallbreaker, but admitting that he ultimately poses the biggest danger since he is in direct contest with their lord. Finally, the military has taken over operation of the Hubble 2 space telescope, And despite his inability to see Trisolaris, they are forced to point it in that direction. And while expecting to see nothing, they do notice lines through the cosmic dust that resembles a brush. They are shocked to realize that they are looking at the trails of the Trisolaran fleet on their way to Earth. And speaking of, let's dive into the summary. So this will be a little bit longer one because there's a bigger section of reading and a lot of stuff happens in these chapters. So start off with Wallfacer Frederick Tyler, who is visited by his wall breaker almost immediately when we open up. And his wall breaker is able to figure out his entire secret plan. His plan, in the English translation, and more on that later, consists of recruiting ETO members to help double cross and destroy the Earth Space Force. He then would make a peace offering to the Trisolarans with large quantities of frozen waters from the Europa and Ceres to help them rehydrate and other uses for clean water. Furthermore, his plan was that the ETO ships, as they were approaching the Trisolaran fleet, would then be triple crossed, and then he would then take over the control of the fleet and detonate the bombs at very close range to the Trisolaran fleet. Fully defeated by his plans being exposed, he visits Loa G at his estate, and shortly after commits suicide at the lake near his house. Loa G continues his life of luxury in the ensuing years, and he has married Zhong Yan and had a daughter named Shashia. Shortly after being visited by Tyler, he finds that Zhang Yan and Shasha had been taken away from him by the PDC, a plan that's been in motion ever since he originally found Zhang Yan to match Luoji's description. They realize that he is the wallbreaker that Trisolaris fears the most in the repeated attempts to kill him, and wants him to refocus his efforts as to figure out why. While strung through his estate, he eventually wanders onto the frozen lake, and as he falls through, has an epiphany as to the nature of the universe, and remarks to himself, Wallfacer Loachi, I am your wallbreaker. He leaves his estate to work far underground for security, and gets to work on what he calls a spell that has to do with broadcasting the location of a star about 50 light years away. However, the ETO's latest plan to get Loachi appears to finally work. They have developed a genetically engineered virus that gets everyone around him mildly sick, but is deadly specifically to Loachi. He turns to the last resort after there's no medical solution to hibernate and hope for a future cure. We jump then to year 12 of the Crisis Era, where we follow Zhang Beihai, who seeks out Ding Yi, who has made a breakthrough in fusion drives, and he asked him if he can hide his research because he's worried that the research into more conventional technology won't produce the interstellar ships that ultimately lead to humanity's defeat. Zhang takes matters into his own hands, purchases meteorites, fashions them into bullets, and assassinates the lead scientists in space by shooting them with the meteorite bullets to make it look like a meteorite shower. This effectively moves all research into the quote-unquote non-media propelled drive research that he feels has the best chance for future success. The Sophons and the Ito observe this, but they feel the research and triumphalism are ultimately losing efforts and of no risk to their lord. Zhang Beihai then also goes into hibernation to help the future Space Force. Next, we jump into Crisis Era Year 20, and we meet up with Heinz and Diaz, who both awake from hibernation. Heinz finds that his wife Keiko has continued the research on faster computers, and by utilizing a neural network of sorts, they are able to increase efficiency and speed by about 10,000 times. In their continued research, they come across a method which they named the mental seal, in which they can implant an idea. There is broad skepticism since the plan is tantamount to mind control. However, they develop a compromise. They will only implant the idea of faith and victory if a member of the military happens to volunteer. And after a slow start, there's a steady stream of volunteers, after which both Heinz and Keiko decide to go into hibernation. Shortly before losing consciousness, Keiko also has an epiphany, but is not able to alert anybody before she falls into the deep sleep of hibernation. Finally, Wallfacer Diaz emerges from hibernation to find that they've been able to develop stellar hydrogen bombs that are about 350 megatons of explosive power. He requests the test in the underground tunnel of Mercury since it's too dangerous to do in Earth's atmosphere or in the Earth. After the PDC debates, they eventually allow it after it is described as the most secure fallback location against the Trisolaran fleet. After the successful test on Mercury, Diaz is also confronted by his wallbreaker. His wallbreaker also details Diaz's diabolical plan to destroy the entire solar system by detonating enough bombs on Mercury to make it fall into the sun, causing a chain reaction destroying the planets up to Jupiter or further, thereby making the solar system uninhabitable by the Trisolarans. However, destroying the Earth and all the people on it as a consequence. The PDC wants to charge Diaz with the yet-to-be-created law against the extinction of life on Earth. However, Diaz tells them that he has rigged a dead man switch to himself, and should anything happen to him, that a bomb will detonate under New York City. His only demand is that he should be allowed to return home, to which they reluctantly agree. Upon returning to his home, he is not greeted with open arms, but rather with a shower of rocks, as his people ultimately stone him to death. So we start with Lua Ji waking up for hibernation and find himself 170 years into the future, cured of his illness. Humanity has significantly progressed from the time that he's been asleep. They moved largely into underground cities. Every aspect of the environment seems to be personalized and connected, and have a large fleet of spaceships that can travel up to 15% the speed of light. People in this era believe that because of this progress, and the fact that the Trisolarans seem to have slowed down, even stopped, except for a probe, that they'll have no choice but to enter peace talks once they arrive. Luigi also gets a recap of all the events that have happened in humanity in the past 170 years. Humanity focused all their efforts and resources on defeating the Trisolarans, plunging humanity into a period called the Great Ravine, where billions starved and died. Humanity eventually decides that the cost of this preparation is not worth the human cost, and instead refocuses on the needs of the people, ultimately leading to the technological breakthroughs. There's also been a major political realignment where space fleets breaking off and forming three independent nations. Another relic of the Common Era that didn't survive is the Wallfacer program, but few people who even remember it think of it as an ancient joke. At a time, humanity was easily scared. The Space Fleet Joint Council now oversees the Wallphaser program, officially ends the program, and returns Luigi and Hines to be ordinary citizens. A remnant of the past that does still exist, however, is the malware that the ETO installed over a century ago called Killer 5.2 and turns technology against Luigi on multiple occasions and tries to kill him. Because he's now joined by our old friend Dasher, he's saved from being killed numerous times. Hines, also freed from being a wallfacer, has his own bad day when his wife Keiko reveals herself as being his wallbreaker. She tells the SFJC that not only was Hines' plan from the start to build the mental seal, but he also built 4 other machines in secret, which may be still operational today. Furthermore, in secret, he changed the operation of the machines not to implant a faith in victory, but to imprint an unshakable defeatist and escapist mindset, a belief that Hines himself imprinted on himself. Finally, Zhang Beihai is also awoken from hibernation, where the current commanders of the Space Fleet need to find commanders they can trust who are not imprinted by the mental seal. And since Zhang Beihai was already shown to be a triumphalist, they decided to temporarily give him control of the ship Natural Selection while they conduct their investigation into who has been imprinted. However, as they're handing over control, they're all shocked to learn that Zhang himself is actually an escapist, and his plan all along was to take control of his ship and escape the solar system as fast as possible. Humanity prepares for the inevitable Trisolaran surrender by debating exactly how generous they should be when they do reach the solar system. They eventually come to the agreement that they call the Strong Survival Plan that would grant the rights of the Trisolarans to settle on Mars after the probe, now called the Droplet, due to its looking like a droplet of mercury, comes into visual range. Humanity considers the Droplet to be a peace offering. Diggy, who has awoken from hibernation, leads a team to be among the first humans to have contact with the Droplet. They are just one ship in a combined fleet of over 2,000, lined up in a rectangular formation that is sent to encounter the Droplet as both a show of unity between the humanity, but actually just so no fleet can claim that they got there first, and a show of force to the Trisolarans. When Dingy's team gets to the point where they're able to physically examine the Droplet, they realize that no matter how powerful magnification they use, the object still seems perfectly smooth, and even after hitting it with a hammer, Dingy realizes that humanity has vastly underestimated Trisolaris' technical capability, since they're able to build large objects out of what's called strong interaction forces, something humanity thought could only be done at the atomic level, and yells, "Stupid children, run." This realization comes a little bit too late for not just his team, but nearly the entire combined space fleet. The Droplet rapidly accelerates and takes an unfathomably precise route directly through the engines of the entire fleet, causing them to explode in succession like a string of firecrackers. The only ships that aren't destroyed in the attack are the Quantum and Bronze Age, which only survive because prior to contact, Dingy convinced them to enter a deep sea state, allowing them to escape at a high speed when the battle starts. On the other side of the solar system, Zhang Beihai and the Natural Selection continue to speed away, pursued by Blue Space, Enterprise, Deep Space, and Ultimate Law. Initially, the goal was to capture and return natural selection, but after they learned about the Droplet attack, they quickly realized that they are now the only hope for humanity and form a new civilization called Starship Earth that faces an uncertain future of deep space travel. Starship Earth tries to organize itself for survival and cooperation for the long journey ahead of them, but it's not too long before they realize that none of the ships have enough fuel or resources on their own to make it to any destination. Separately, they all make plans to capture the resources of the other ships while inflicting what they see as necessary casualties of the crews of those ships so they can continue. The leadership of the natural selection comes with realization and goes to John Bahai, now back in command, that he must fire infrasonic H-bombs to take out the crew but preserve the other ships. John Bahai had already come to this realization and was prepared to give the order, but he hesitates at the last moment and is too late when Ultimate Law launches the attack first, killing John Bahai, Dongfeng Shu, and the rest of the crew. Blue Space was the only ship ready for the attack, and ultimately it was the only ship to survive the Battle of Darkness. Meanwhile, on the other side of the solar system, Quantum and Bronze Age have come to the same realization and ended up with the Bronze Age killing the Quantum's crew. Blue Space and Bronze Age leave memorials for the killed crew of the other ships and accelerate away from the solar system to start their journey to distant stars. So immediately following the Battle of Darkness, Luo Ji proclaims that he knew it all along and that he holds the key to human victory. While Beijing descends into chaos, he just travels a great distance away from the city and waits for the Droplet to kill him in the middle of the desert. But his demise is not meant to be, as the Droplet suddenly changes course and starts an electromagnetic wave towards the sun, effectively blocking humanity from using it to send any more messages into deep space, the way that Ye Wenjie did centuries ago, and how Luo Ji sent his spell. Upon returning to the city, Dasher and Luo Ji see another mob has grown, but this one has much different makeup. They are there in reverence of Luo Ji. His spell was worked, and the distant star 187J3X1 has been destroyed by a small object traveling at near light speed called a photoid. He is now worshipped as the savior of humanity, and his Wallfacer status is restored by Heinz and Ben Jonathan. Dasher is finally able to get Luo Ji to tell him the secret of the spell in confidence. The basis of the spell is rooted in the cosmic axioms that were imparted to him by Ye Wenjie all those years earlier, although he doesn't reveal it, who actually told him. From the axioms, he extrapolated the theory of chains of suspicion, such that a civilization can be considered to be either benevolent or malicious. However, due to the nature of space and the inability to communicate over great distances, the true nature of a distant civilization cannot be determined. And even if it could, there's no way to determine if that civilization considers you to be benevolent or malicious. This, coupled with other principles of technological explosion, the fact that in the cosmic timescale, civilizations can make great progress in a very short time. The Battle of Darkness was just a microcosm of these axioms, and among the cosmic civilizations, like a hunter in a dark forest, if society makes itself known to another, it's simply safer for that civilization to fire upon them rather than making themselves known to the other hunters in the dark forest, or risk being found themselves. Luo Ji used the sun to broadcast the coordinates of a distant star to the universe, and, like he predicted, it was destroyed by another cosmic civilization not willing to take the chance, and decided that the destruction was a safer alternative. Unable to awaken his family from hibernation, and unable to send another spell since the Droplet has blocked the sun, Luo Ji immerses himself in a relatively inconsequential project known as the Snow Project, which is to encircle the solar system in stellar bombs covered in oil from Neptune that will help detect the location of the 9 other droplets on their way to Earth. After 3 years working on the project, Luo Ji again falls out of favor with the public and once again is considered to be a fraud. Disheveled, he packs a shovel and heads to the cemetery where Ye Wenjie and Yang Dong are buried to dig his own grave. It is there where he has his final confrontation with the Trisolarians. Similar to Ray Diaz's threat, he has rigged a dead man switch to himself that, when triggered, will signal the bombs encircling the solar system to detonate in a very specific pattern that will broadcast the coordinates of Trisolarius to the universe. Realizing that Luo Ji's well-being is now critical to the survival of Trisolarius, a trio of Sophons unfold and negotiate with him. They agree to divert the droplets, Trisolarian fleet, lift the Sophon block, and help humanity build gravitational wave antennas. We end with Luo Ji and his family going to observe the gravitational antenna 5 years later, where he once again encounters an unfolded Sophon. This time, it's the Trisolarian pacifist who sent the warning to Ye Wenjie all those years ago, and Luo Ji concludes that he hopes that one day a brilliant sunlight will illuminate the dark forest.